Hello, guys and gals, me Mutahar, and boy oh boy, there's another huge Discord controversy. Now, this one's a pretty serious controversy because, ladies and gentlemen, imagine if you're just minding your own business on the internet, right? Imagine the cops show up at your door, knock on everything, and say, "Are you a child predator, sir? Have you been sharing illegal images?" Now, there's two responses from two vastly different people. If you're genuinely guilty, you'll probably bullshit and try to lie your way out of it. But if you are actually innocent, I'm sure you'll probably end up just being completely in shock. So how did this end up happening, ladies and gentlemen? Well, over the course of the last couple days, there have been a lot of people talking about a vulnerability in Discord's AI moderation, where apparently any and all square grid images like spreadsheets, chessboards, Minecraft inventories like this, and according to some people, even some of their gameplay development content, right? So for instance, people who were sharing these images, their textures, with little checkerboards on them, yeah, this ended up tripping something in Discord's moderation that labeled anybody sharing these images as a possible child predator, a CSAM sharing sicko. Now, I think it's a pretty wild fucking story, and to be honest with you, I wanted to kind of jump into it because I have, over the course of years, whenever I cover things like trafficking gate or really anything technology related, the actual methodologies around fighting internet predators is actually quite interesting. There are technologies that I really support that handle a lot of this shit on the internet and try to clean it up as much as they can for the average person. So here's the grim reality, okay? The internet's a scary, dangerous place, right? You know, a lot of people will be like, man, if you want to see something illegal, just go to the dark web. But here's the thing about it, okay? The dark web, yeah, there's illegal shit on there, but there's also just a lot of goofy stuff, as I've shown in over, 200 episodes of deep web browsing through the course of my time on YouTube. But generally, a lot of sick individuals, yes, do sit a lot of times in common social media circles, right? Like, for instance, we even saw issues on Twitter years ago where people were sharing literally hashtags, like predators would share that stuff around. There's issues on YouTube where in certain comment sections, there are entire networks of groomers and people that share information on here, right? Through the YouTube comment section where they'll start small here and they'll move people off to private messaging platforms like Discord. Discord is one of the most used social media platforms in the world. It's one of the most popular chat applications in the world. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people on Discord that are willing to share illegal shit. It's one of the reasons why, as far as me, I have the ability to start my own self-hosted Discord-like server. But the reality of it is that if you're in the world of self-hosting, the only people you should ever allow on your server are people that you 100% just end up trusting, okay? Other than that, moderation on the internet is a fucking scary thing. So for instance, these guys are like, Discord, the vulnerability needs to be fixed immediately with every false ban overturned. Additionally, AI moderation needs to be scrapped and replaced with humans. It's exactly why companies shouldn't be using clankers to decide whether accounts should be banned or not. So in some mind, I do tend to agree over here, but the reality of it is that there are so many people on the internet every fucking day that you can't necessarily just rely on human beings. You probably can't even hire enough human beings to do this kind of stuff. Now, I don't know if you were following me a couple months ago, a few months ago actually, but we were covering things like Instagram bans, like Instagram would disable accounts, and a lot of it would happen because literally these accounts would be flagged with, again, being there to share illegal CSAM material, right? Now again, it's difficult for me to sort of vet every single person that got banned. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have been rightfully banned that are just jumping onto these bandwagons to fucking say, guys, they just targeted me specifically, and they're actually sick predators. But yes, it is a computer system. Computers make mistakes, and unfortunately those mistakes have some users slandered as predators. So for instance, people over here are just kind of sitting, they'll be like, your account is at risk. You broke the rules for non-consensual adult content. You broke the rules for harassment and bullying. You broke the rules for child safety. I would think with 3 active violations, your account shouldn't just be at risk. You should just straight be thrown into the suspension pool. But here's the thing, right? For instance, a lot of people genuinely are scared. This person is like, Discord's flagging images that have a grid-like pattern. Is Minecraft inventories going to cause this? Again, let's look into the actual facts of the situation, right? So when it comes to things like flagging you on the internet, remember there have been cases where literally dads who were asked by their doctor to send photos of their children's, sort of like delicate sections for medical reasons, right? Like a doctor, your pediatric will ask you, it's like, oh my God, your kid's fucked up. Send me a photo. Let me see what's going on here. There's nothing dirty about it. It's literally a medical reason why you would do that. Well, according to Google, in one case, their system flagged an individual known as Mark in this case. And Mark was like, listen, okay, out of nowhere, the doctor asked him, he gave him the issue, diagnosed, everything was done. So after a while, he was using Google pretty heavily. He synced appointments with his wife on Google Calendar. His phone auto-backed up his photos and videos to Google Cloud. So remember, he took a photo of his kids, probably didn't even think, oh yeah, this is just immediately going up to Google servers, but it did. So Google servers were like looking through every photo and they're like, wait, that's a violation. So 2 days after taking the photo of his son, Mark's phone made a blooping notification noise. His account has been disabled because of harmful content, and there was a severe violation of Google's policies. So basically, Google flagged the image of his kid and was like, oh my God, this guy's a sick fuck. Let me ban their account. Now, banning your account is one thing, but what happens is Google's review team had flagged a video he had made, which obviously had went to his doctor. That went to the San Francisco Police Department, and they'd started to investigate him, right? So basically, all of a sudden, because of a medical situation, right, totally legitimate medical situation, now the fucking cops are looking into you for one of the worst things that a father can do to their child, right? So ultimately, at the end of the day, even though that it was resolved, I believe that basically he wasn't even really brought back to the internet, right? And of course, despite the fact that, again, this man was kind of like freed away from this, he was exempt, ultimately he was cleared of any criminal wrongdoing, but Google, still, from what I hear, from what this article is, and it's 3 years old, hasn't restored his account, okay? So again, every time you upload something to somebody else's computer, which is basically the cloud, they're going to be looking through your shit, right? Now, is it necessarily a human being? Probably not, but, it could be anything, right? It could be an algorithm, so to speak. So anyways, now that I've shown you the story, to go back to Discord. Discord is pretty committed to child and teen safety, right? And you might be like, how do they make sure kids are safe? So when it comes to images that are being sent around, what they use is a mix of proactive and reactive tools to remove content that violates policies. So they use things like advanced technology like photo DNA and partnering with, again, community moderators, right? So ultimately, at the end of the day, this is one of the reasons why people push for like age verification and whatnot, I guess to keep children completely off these platforms. Because unfortunately, when you do have people that are 13 years and above, under 18, still accessing, there is an unfortunate situation where they can be harmed. But this is all about CSAM material. CSAM is not okay, no matter what your fucking age is. So when they mention things like photo DNA, what they're talking about is Microsoft's photo DNA. Now, I've talked about this in the past, but generally the idea is you take a photo, the photo is converted to this hash, that hash is then given a fingerprint, as you're seeing right over here with this string of numbers. So anytime that hash shows up somewhere else, Microsoft will come in and say, that's CSAM material, right? Even if you kind of edit the photo and change things around, you could end up tripping this hash. So basically, I wanted to deep dive into this whole story. And actually, a year ago, there was something interesting that kind of hit my actual feeds. Now, one of the employees at Discord did end up saying that this is basically nothing to do with any AI moderation. There were some false positive matches, and the bans are only temporary until they are manually reviewed. Now, this is where I have a bit of a concern with what Discord is sort of doing. Now, even if these are false, remember, Discord will end up reporting this, right? We don't allow CSAM. When imagery is found, the imagery is reported to the NCMEC. So again, this immediately will then be working with local law enforcement, right, in certain cases. So even if you're falsely flagged by Discord, even if it's over an image like this, could it basically start a police investigation into you? Possibly. Now, will that investigation get terminated? I fucking hope so, if you're actually genuinely innocent. But again, it's one of those things where, again, people are using a fucking social media platform, and sometimes, without them knowing, they can be thrown into a world of what the fuck? So I wanted to look carefully into this situation too. Now, this is back in June 2025 on the Cloudflare community forums. And here they kind of talk about something a little bit similar. So for instance, when it came to Cloudflare's CSAM scanning tool, and a lot of these tools kind of do have a lot of similarities, they will show false positives. And in this case, the false positive that was being used was this image right here. It's just a set of magenta lines in a grid pattern. And that was apparently enough, like this image, all of these were triggering the CSAM tool, and the CSAM tool was saying, yeah, there's actual child material here. But in reality, I don't see a single child in this grid, and I don't think anybody watching will see that. And the problem is, these are fucking computer algorithms. When a computer algorithm calls you a predator, that computer algorithm is not a real human being. It's just trained on a set of actual hashes, and if something false comes through, its declaration of you being a predator will actually be quite harmful, even though it's not based on anything human related. So generally speaking, a lot of individuals have been walking around with this running theory that a lot of predators have kind of confused the photo DNA in a lot of these systems with using checkerboards to confuse the training data, when in reality, what's actually happening over here is, unfortunately, the low entropy repeating patterns, which would be the checkerboards, are a very structural weak point of something known as perceptual hashing, which is effectively where we're analyzing things based on a grid. So here I actually have a little tool for you guys that I just quickly made using a local artificial intelligence model, and of course some good old-fashioned elbow grease and Z, and this over here, ladies and gentlemen, is a tool that'll show you kind of how this stuff works. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to take an image of my face, and I'm going to drop it into this tool. Now you can see right over here that the original over here, if we're following by, photo DNA as a standard, you can see that it goes from this image all the way to grayscale, downscale to 32 by 32, and then that is what it looks like in this grid matrix, right? So immediately, we're going to actually do some attacks, right? So for instance, to show you how this works, the computer will look at this grid. Now imagine if this grid is now considered CSAM, right? Like this image, when converted, this is what the grid looks like, and that hash is now CSAM, right? So anytime this hash shows up again in, Discord or whatever, and it's flagged and it gets analyzed, it's going to trip, again, that same, moderation that everyone has kind of been dealing with. So effectively, what happens over here is, let's say that you're somebody that destroys the quality, right? If you destroy the quality of this JPEG, you can still see that the hash remains the same. Well, let's say we resize the image, right, to 40%, or we get rid of the quality. The further we degrade the quality, the image will be able to detect a similar hash. And of course, even if CSAM looks this fucked up, it may still be considered the same image. So let's brighten the image, so to speak, right? That's where we're really changing the hash. Now it's just a white image. And of course, if we basically add a watermark, it's still going to be identified as the same hash, even though that extra block got added because of course, the watermark, right? The general hash is still the same. So again, when you look at the actual checkerboard, if a checkerboard that looks like this has a hash that unfortunately a real photo might match in some capacity, yes, you are tripping that same issue. And I think the real problem here is that it's not just me explaining how this stuff kind of works to some extent. The reality is that if you are reported for stuff like this, that can be pretty scary. And ultimately, when you're dealing with any cloud service, this is unfortunately a fucking reality. Now, I've never come across this, but I imagine if somebody's exchanging images around, this might have actually result in a flag. And that's what somebody has even talked about when, again, when a real Discord employee is mentioning this, it's something to really consider. It's something to wonder. In fact, even an individual from Discord, like the ban from Discord Reddit, actually talks about perceptual hatching. And of course, this is where they say it's not enough to just match exact files. Otherwise, it could easily be bypassed by applying color filters or slightly cropping off the edges. In Discord's case, the algorithm is likely photo DNA, and they do talk about that, right? So according to one of the users, which I found was really interesting, they said 3 days ago their account got suspended for the child safety shit, right? On July 2nd, I remember doing that little thing where you can paste an image like 9 times to make a 3x3 grid, screenshot it and paste it 9 times. Rinse and repeat until I had a huge wall of this really dumb screenshot of Michael DeSanta. So again, I don't know if this person literally got banned for this, but the reality of it is that it seems like there is some bug going on at Discord that I think even they've acknowledged, whereby having, I guess, a grid pattern, it's enough to be treated like somebody that shares predatory images on the internet. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, look, we have to find some way to like protect children on the internet. And unfortunately, you may not agree with some of these practices. Like you might think, okay, a computer shouldn't be able to dictate if you're like a predator. And I'm of the mind that I do agree. But remember, we're looking at volume of users, right? There is such a mass volume of people. Imagine just while you were watching this video, how many people have shared an image on Discord globally? That's the level of people that you need to be able to monitor. So yeah, you do need computers. But I feel like, obviously, when a computer gets brought in, I feel like there needs to be a better mechanism where a human being reviews every single matched hash. And I'm sure they do eventually. But I think a system, again, Discord wants you to get off the platform as soon as possible. And that means skipping maybe human review, right? Just, we detected your hash and we're going to get rid of you. But again, with a system that has false positives as the issue, I think that's a problem. And it's also a big problem if you get reported to the police at some point because of a false detection, right? But hopefully you learned how this whole system works, ladies and gentlemen. It's a fucking wild technological world we're in, man. But yeah, there seems to be a issue going around with Discord, apparently with the grid-based patterns. And if I were you, I would stop sharing Sudoku puzzles or fucking Minecraft grids until I guess this is resolved. Anyways, this is me, Mutahar, and yeah. When you upload something to the cloud, don't be surprised if they can just look through it. And sometimes if their systems trip up wrong, you're going to look like a pretty sketchy guy, whether you are or not. I am out.